Hey everybody, this is Toby Younis with a Gypsy's Kiss. Stick with me a couple of seconds and I will introduce you to actually it's First Sergeant, Jason Dent. So some of you who are watching this video will recognize Jason as Fenn Treasure Hunter on YouTube. For those of you that don't, we're going to introduce you to him and let you learn more about him. Jason, to me, is one of the people whose work I respect, and I also respect him as a man and a military professional. I like the way he handles himself, and I like the way he handles other people. So, Jason, let's start by telling people a little bit about who Jason Dent is.
All right. I am a full-time active duty service member in the United States Army, currently stationed down in Fort Bliss, Texas, where I'm a company first sergeant for a signal company. So we set up tactical communications networks in remote locations. Been involved in the chase, for about 5 years now, and only in the past 2-3 months have I really become active in the blogs and on YouTube.
And how long have you been in the military?
Total of 19 years.
And I remember you mentioning there was a brief hiatus in between that you started in the military, then you left for civilian and came back to the military. What was that? What series of decisions was that?
Well, so I originally joined in 1995 and then served until 2002. And I was in, Georgia and Texas and South Korea. While I was in South Korea, I had a decision to make whether I was going to go ahead and re-enlist for a second time or get out of the military. And I had a pretty good opportunity to take over a restaurant back home, and so I decided to get out of the military. Well, all decisions don't always work out the way that you think they will, and that opportunity kind of went away. So for the 4 years that I was out, I ended up working for a copy machine company and then doing computer work and owning my own small business, doing computer sales services support with restaurant management systems, credit card merchant service accounts, and selling office supplies. So it was a pretty busy time, but that was between 2002 and 2006. So watch TV and the news and hear from some of the soldiers that I used to work with and for, and see all the guys getting deployed and doing combat rotations and in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I really had a strong desire to rejoin the military and be a part of that life. Not only did I miss the military life and the structure and the discipline, but the camaraderie as well. I got out in 2002, so I didn't have the opportunity to deploy and serve my country in that capacity. So probably had a little bit of feelings in the gut that I missed out. And although I prepared soldiers to do that, I wasn't a part of it myself. So I really felt obligated to rejoin. So in 2006, I rejoined, went to South Korea, and then after that, Fort Hood, Texas, Iraq, Fort Bliss, Texas, Fort Drum, New York, where I left for Afghanistan, and then upon return from there, went back to South Korea, and then ultimately back here to Fort Bliss in El Paso. So.
I was at Fort Hood for a while after I came back from overseas, but not long before I was shipped out to Washington, D.C. So I suppose the big question is, considering where you are now, you're, what, a couple, 2.5 years away from retirement. How do you feel about that decision to re-enlist in 2006 and spend the time that you have since then in the service?
That's 12 years ago that I rejoined, and it feels like maybe 3 years ago. The first 7.5, 8 years I was in, I mean, that was a long time.
Hmm.
You know, did one re-enlistment. It just seemed like, wow, this is going so slow. I'm never going to make it to 20 years in the military,
Hmm.
you know, and currently now 19 and a half.
Right.
Blink of an eye. Who would have thought? You know, 2 combat deployments. I think I have a total of 10 and a half years overseas and 19 and a half years in the military. So I still have more time overseas than I do stateside.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, all the soldiers I've trained, the positions I've filled in the military, you know, all those times are very rewarding times, and I've learned a lot along the way. But I never, like, never would have imagined that I'd be in the twilight of my career now.
You know, at this time. So another thing I don't think any of us ever imagine is, you know, you're serving right now as the first sergeant. That's the highest ranking NCO at the company level. And I know you mentioned earlier today that you've been asked to serve as sergeant major for the battalion. Did you ever imagine when you reenlisted in 2006 you'd be serving as a first sergeant for a company and a temporary sergeant major for a battalion?
Well, one of my goals. So I set goals along the way, just as everybody does. And once you reach a goal, you got to set another one. But I had an amazing first sergeant at my very first duty station. I mean, he reminded me of Montel Williams, but you know, his name is First Sergeant Gill. I don't keep in contact with him now, but I know he's on Facebook and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just haven't talked to him. But you know, company first sergeant back then really set the example of what a senior non-commissioned officer really needs to be, how their character and how they take care of soldiers and all these things. So that's always been one of my goals. But my first goal was you know, to become a sergeant, non-commissioned
Mm-hmm.
officer. That happened, you know, 3.5 years in the military. That happened really quick, especially in the mid 90s.
Right.
When I got out and came back in, my date of rank for sergeant started over
Over
again
again.
in 2006. Um, so, you know, I want to make staff sergeant. I think it was, you know, a year and a half later, I was a staff sergeant. You know, I made sergeant first class on my second look, you know, and all these were goals along the way. Um, you know, but in my heart, I've always wanted to be a company first
Hmm.
sergeant. You know, I mean, that's like the one job. You
Mm-hmm.
know, people ask about becoming a sergeant major, and I'm ambivalent about that. I don't really know if I want to be or not. Don't really know how to feel about that. Um, but I think company first sergeant is the most rewarding position that I've served in the military.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having a company, regardless of the size, and the soldiers and their successes and the missions you accomplish, you know, you're directly involved with all that stuff. So, you know, very rewarding. Our company here in Fort Bliss did, you know, hurricane relief missions for Harvey and Maria in southeastern Texas and Puerto Rico. You know, so to get those guys prepped, ramped up, and out the door for those missions, you know, like in less than 12 hours, you know, and see them come back successfully from their missions is super rewarding. You know, so I can't really imagine being in any other capacity in the military.
And so your battalion is an air support battalion. Is that correct?
It's well, I'm in a combat aviation brigade and a aviation support battalion.
And tell the audience a little bit about what an aviation support battalion does.
You know, they do a lot of ground maintenance, transportation of fuel, water, and parts. And there's a tactical signal company, like I'm the first sergeant of,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also the largest company is actually the aviation maintenance company, the guys that actually, you know, repair and work on the helicopters.
And that's kind of why your unit would be involved in um, recovery operations with Hurricane Harvey and Maria. That
Yep, doing air evac missions
yeah.
and transporting water and food to remote locations
Hmm.
via rotary aircraft. Yes.
Well, thank you for your service. I appreciate it. I'm sure Americans who are listening to this appreciate it, and we're very grateful for your commitment to our country and the Constitution. So let's get on to, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about, is the Fenn treasure hunt.
Right?
So you mentioned that you had gotten into the treasure hunt around 2013. What was the impetus? What stimulated you to start thinking about searching for this treasure?
Well, I've researched a lot of different treasure stories, whether it was in the Southwest or the Southeast, whether it's Confederate gold stories or like the Docknoss treasure or the treasure of the Superstition Mountains and, Knights of the Gold Circle, Jesse James treasures, all these different treasure stories. But a lot of those are based on lore. I mean, there's no hard, tangible proof that those treasures are out there. They're so old, the stories have got twisted over time, So what tangible proof is there? All those stories are 2 or 3 people found this treasure. They got rescued by Indians, whatever.
Right.
2 of them died. 1 of them makes it back to whatever location and ultimately gets sick and on his deathbed tells of where this lost mine was or story.
And then everybody chases it based on that.
And there's nothing tangible about it. Well, 2013 with the Today Show coming out, I had just left Fort Bliss down here in El Paso, Texas, and went to Fort Drum, New York. And while I was up there, I see this on the Today Show about, this eccentric millionaire, wrote a book and hid this treasure chest, with $2 million worth of gold and jewels and coins in it somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. And he wrote a book containing 9 clues and was like, wait a minute, this guy, like in my time, hid this treasure and, put out a book. I was like, this is pretty amazing. So I started researching it. I was armchairing, the heck out of this thing. And then, came up with a couple possible areas where I wanted to search. So after I went to Afghanistan and Korea, my options when I was in Korea weren't very good for places to come back to. I could come back to Fort Bliss, Texas, which I had already been there, didn't really want to go. I could go to Fort Polk, Louisiana, or Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Well, I had no desire to go to Fort Sill or Fort Polk, and I said, you know what? I've already been to El Paso. I know El Paso. I'm going to be, just down the road from where I want to search for this treasure. So, it kind of reinvigorated the research that I did and enabled me to actually go boots on the ground and actually look. So, once you do one boots on the ground and go out there, you're hooked.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The difference, 5-6 hours from El Paso north, near the Rio Grande in the Rocky Mountains is totally different than the desert temperate area of El Paso. So it's nice to get up there, but look, to find a box that Forrest Fenn put out there, to beat him at a battle of wits and outsmart him by figuring out the clues, or at least match him in intelligence. I mean, that's kind of the drive that I have.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, it's the challenge. He put the challenge out there. Here, go find it. It's there. And it's not like it was a deathbed announcement 200 years ago, right, that had been embellished and expanded beyond recognition as it went through that period. The guy was there, and he had pictures of it, and he had friends telling you that he had done this because that was the kind of and he could afford it, So I think we got into the search for about the same reasons. It was the Today Show in 2013, which I got in. So I get that part. I do indeed get that part. So I have to tell you, though, I did AIT at Fort Polk and in Tiger Town, I remember. It was probably a lot worse than it was when you got there, but tough place to be. So
I went there for JRTC, and it was not a pleasant
yeah, I know. No, it is. Yeah.
It's horrible in the summer.
And even worse, it's like in a part of Louisiana where there's nothing. I mean, it just literally in the boonies. Okay, so in which state do you believe Fenn hid the treasure?
New Mexico.
And the obvious follow-on question, what is it that helps you to come to that conclusion?
Well, not giving away too much, but when you first read the book, uh, right before the poem, with the 9 clues, it tells you. So I, hid this treasure in the mountains north of Santa Fe. And I know that he feels his life had started once he retired from the military and moved to Santa Fe. So I think that local market for Santa Fe and the mountains north of there just fits too perfect for it to be anywhere else.
Yeah. So you and I ought to talk, because you and I come to a lot of the same conclusions for the same reasons. So we all know that Fenn said that his gut feeling told him that it was going to be found this summer, and then he wavered on that. In your opinion, when do you think the treasure will be found?
I think it'll be in the next couple years. I don't think it'll be this year. I'm just not going to search enough to find it this year. So I think, here in the next couple years, when I get to my new search location, I think that's when I'll pick it up. So.
And your new search location, had you recently changed from changed from one search location to another?
I did. I had a really good solve location. Off the record, I'll tell you about it, and all the reasons why I searched there, but it didn't pan out. I think I've exhausted that, so I really had to go back to the poem, dissect the clues to establish a new area.
Well, I can empathize. Been there, done that. For things that you thought were going to work really, really well, worked really, really well until you got there, and you go like, no, this is not Fenny enough. So, as a follow-on to that is, what do you believe is the percent probability that it's going to be you that finds this treasure?
Oh man, I'd really love to say 100%. But I don't know, and I think my opinion wavers, depending on what day it is and how much I'm looking at the poem. But I'd say 70.
All right, 70%. That's good. That's a good confident number. So, how many times have you been boots on the ground to this point?
I would say 8. 8 times.
And any of the states outside of New Mexico? Have you even considered the possibility that it might be in one of the other states?
No, I'm not going to waste my time searching where he didn't put the treasure.
Right. So, which of the 3 Fenn memoirs do you own?
I own The Thrill of the Chase and Too Far to Walk.
And why not Once Upon a While? What happened? Just haven't
ordered it.
Haven't ordered it. And
hoping I win a contest on your site.
One of them. I should start doing that, getting books from Collected Works and having trivia. Although I'm trying to try to make these things as difficult as possible, and these guys are getting the answers before I can process the video. And they're getting.
Next time, just write a poem with 9 clues
and see if they can figure it out. Yeah.
The prize.
So. I know we talked about the various assets in terms of information research that we have available to us. Everything from the Google to Google Earth to the forums to the YouTube channel. Tell me a little bit about your search strategies, your research strategies, and what kind of internet resources you use when you're doing your research before you go boots on the ground.
I'm not going to tell you what I currently use.
Okay, all right.
I will tell you what I have historically used.
All right.
Because it has changed, and I think I'm closer now than what I was before. Although before I thought I was closer than before, so I don't know how this works. But Google Earth I think is a very good research tool, but you kind of got to understand Forrest's life and his way of thinking in order to pull some of the clues out of the poem. He says, begin at where warm waters halt, but, is that a face value type of where warm waters halt, or is there a different meaning to that? So, I've researched the Tiwa or Tewa, whichever way you want to say it,
Tewa, yeah.
Etymology. Well, Forrest was very clear when he told me that there's 3 different tribes of Indians. One was the Tiwa, one is the Tewa, and one is the Tanoan.
Tanoan.
I think Tanoan. So he said, "Oh no, there's 3 separate ones, and they all have their own language, but they're very similar." Because that was a question that I asked. But so I've looked at the etymology of that and researched the language and how certain words that we think are Spanish on the map actually originally derived from Tewa or Tiwa.
Yeah. And
then also some of them are Spanish translation. Right. But when you read the definitions for those words, they pick up subtle meanings that I've discovered in the poem. So, looking at the thrill of the chase, the etymology of the Tewa Indian, and Google Earth, I think are pretty solid ways to start.
Well, so based on that, how much time do you spend each week researching in preparation for your boots on the ground?
That's really hard to say. I really try to spend about an hour a day. Now, sometimes on the weekends, if I'm not going out boots on the ground, I might get absorbed. And 6, 8 hours later, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm driving myself crazy here. But, I think it would average out to be about an hour to 2 hours, every day or every other day. So.
Well, like you, I try to do a little bit of research every day, and I try to limit it to the evening hours. I don't want to waste my daylight, if I can't think of a better way to say it. But I'm always surprised how I'll start pull some little thread, and before you know it, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're going like, I got to get up in 4 hours, So I know the feeling. So last question, if we both know that there's a lot of new searchers coming into the community as a result of all these articles that have been published in the past couple of months. If you had some advice that you'd want to give to these new searchers, what would you tell them?
Don't be overconfident in your first solve. And there's, it's multifaceted, Don't think that just because you read the poem 1 time or 2 times that you got the correct solve based upon face value clues in the poem. We have all done that. We've all went rushing out to do our boots on the ground only to discover it's not there. So don't overextend yourself financially or with your relationships. Methodically plan it out before you go and make sure that everything lines up for you to do boots on the ground. Don't mortgage your house or take out a second mortgage on your house just to go do a boots on the ground in hopes of recovering his chest, because odds are, over the past 8, 9 years, somebody's already looked in that same area. So, you're probably going to have to research a little bit more than you thought you would.
So for those of you that are new searchers, remember you're getting that advice from a person whose responsibility in the military is to counsel young people and make sure they stay on track in terms of the requirements of the service. So, Jason, thank you very much for your time. This was a great, I'm glad that I could do this interview. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I want to thank you for your invitation onto your show tonight. I had a wonderful time on that, so it was a lot of fun doing that. And of course, I looked forward to future conversations with you.
All right. Well, thank you, Toby.
And you can find Jason at Fenn Treasure Hunter on YouTube. I'll make sure that there's a link in the description box below this video so that you can get to him if you're not already a subscriber. I told you I have a great deal of respect for who he is and what he does and how he's handling the development of content on YouTube. So I'm going to strongly recommend that if you're not already a subscriber to his channel, please do so as soon as possible. Okay, Jason, thanks again. We'll see you again soon, I'm sure, on one channel or the other. And thanks for your time tonight.
All right, thank you.